is like this. I might have made that too long. All right, so you drag one through.
Can we reuse this, or is it after it's done?
Fold it. It's pretty much done after it's been used. And you shove it down inside the hole. And see, now you got a good hold on it.
Okay.
So now you can take another one and add to this, maybe even the cutoff piece, and find something to zip tie it to.
So it doesn't drop.
So it doesn't drop.
Can you, on your motor mount, would it be okay to zip tie it to the motor?
Yeah, but you won't be able to do that on the engine because it's installed in the truck.
Well, how about this exhaust manifold if it's long enough?
Just anything. If it's long enough,
yeah.
If you make it long enough, you can just let it dangle in there and you'll be fine. But when you get this
But it's as long it won't fall. You have a
you
catch.
have to have it long enough that it won't, that you still have the ability to pull it back up.
Okay.
So when you take this nut off, all right, the nut can come out and just kind of hang on whatever you've got here.
Okay.
All right, you push this inner piece, and there's two notches. Keep track of which one because that determines the angle. The newer Model 7.3s, the dipstick tube comes up way over here. So it's got a different angle on this. This is angled forward one notch.
Mine is the 99.5. It's the early
It's a later
one.
model. No, that's a later model. This is an early model. This came out of a square body.
Oh, okay,
It's the same oil pan, but it came out of the square
But
body.
those notches, you gotta...
Just pay attention to which one it's on when you push it out. So the nut's off. You push this thing inside and you hold it up to where you can see, and what you're going to find is a big swollen fat O-ring because it displaced.
Is it this thing?
Yeah. It's supposed to be like that. It'll be 3 times the thickness of that. It'll be 3 times that because it displaced itself and then swolled up.
Okay.
You have to peel that out with a pick. And you'll see, and then drag it through the hole. The hole's not as big as it looks because it's only the size of this, not the size of the nut.
Mm-hmm.
So when you drag that out, and you're laying underneath, so it's...
What about, sorry for interrupting, you know, my uncle has got huge tractors that we can hook it up and lift it up 45 degree.
No, you don't want to do that because then you can't reach. You got to take the starter and shit out. And if it's too high, then you can't reach and do what you need to do. Drive it up on ramps at best.
Well, but we can turn it up. We can take a tractor and lift it up higher, right? So it's going to, the car is going to be like 45 degree angle.
No, the car should be like
you want
this.
it. You want it flat?
Not flat, but you don't want the like the front wheels. Drive the front tires up no more than like 8 inches.
Okay.
Because you already have, once you get underneath, you already have to get the starter out.
Okay.
And then once the starter's out, then you're still reaching up to this thing.
Okay.
Even on ramps. So you get in there and you peel the old O-ring out.
Okay.
Don't break it. And then slowly pull it out through the hole.
Yeah.
Then your brake cleaning process starts. And you'll see on this flange, on the inner flange, you'll see a recess that the O-ring's supposed to fit in.
Yeah.
Make sure that's clean. Spray it. You won't be able to scrub it with anything. Spray it real good. And there's only oil in there anyway. Spray it. Let it dry. Spray it. Let it dry.
Can you give me time frames on spray it, let it dry, spray it?
Couple 3 minutes.
Each intervals?
Yeah.
Okay.
Spray it a 3rd or 4th time when you let it dry. Then let it sit for about 10 minutes. Then you want to pull it back up.
And that's where that notch comes in. You got to make sure that notch that you pay attention to.
We're not there yet. Then you want to pull it back up to a point where you can see that recess the O-ring fits in, and put a dab of silicone.
What type of silicone?
Doesn't matter.
If you had to pick.
I'd use black.
Black silicone.
Black or blue.
Okay.
Dab of silicone in 2 spots.
Of the recessed area.
Of the recessed area.
12 o'clock, 6 o'clock?
Yeah, like 180 degrees from each other.
Uh-huh.
And then you work the new O-ring inside the hole. Now keep in mind, you're using both hands all the time.
Okay.
And then you work the new O-ring inside in through the pan.
Because your left hand is being held with that stick.
You could be right-handed, left-handed. It all depends on what you're most comfortable with. One hand is holding this. The other hand is working the O-ring, and then you take the pick, so 90-degree pick, and you push it into that recess, into the silicone.
Yeah.
Then slowly grab the thing right here as close as you can, and slowly pull it back into the hole. Then hold on it.
Yeah.
All right. Then work the nut back down. Even if you got to work the nut down, get behind it, hold it, let the nut go back down, and start putting it on till it's finger tight.
Yeah.
Okay. Make sure that everything is in place. You can wiggle it just a little bit, and there's not much play. And then get a whether you're using channel locks or what, then start to snug it up, snug it up, snug it up, snug it up. Don't tighten it to the point where it's like, it doesn't need to be that tight, but it needs to be tight enough to sandwich that O-ring, because the inside of the pan is flat.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why they displace the way they do is because the pan is flat. So if vibration loosens that nut at all, then it's just enough. It'll loosen just enough. The O-ring will start to push out. It'll start to swell and push out, and then you're fucked, because the oil, all the oil seems to drain right down over the top of that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just gushing out of the side of the pan.
Mm-hmm.
So you get it snugged down, snugged down, snugged down, snugged down, and then leave it alone for like 2 or 3 hours so the silicone
Seats
can cure and not become part of the issue, clogging the pickup or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking, I mean, it doesn't take much to hold that O-ring in place. Make sure you don't get any oil on the O-ring before you put it in there, because you want the silicone to hold it. And once it's in there, let it sit for 2 or 3 hours before you start fucking around with anything else. Because
meaning the screwing it in, you should let it 2 to 3 hours before you start.
No, you
You
tightened
snug
it
it.
most of the way.
Okay.
At least most of the way, with the wrench,
Channel.
channel locks, whatever, and walk away for 2 or 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Come back, check to make sure the nut is still tight. Maybe give it another 30-second of a turn to make sure. Then you can put the dipstick tube and shit back in it.
Well, let's just approach that one, those 2 little dots or whatever you were talking about.
You have to keep track. The oil pan's got a notch in it. I don't know where. I think the notch is right here. On the later model ones, because it's the same flange, this opening is going to be on the oil pan notch. This is an early model. This is a OSB.
So how do you keep track when you're taking the flange off, right?
When you take it off, when you take the nut off, you'll see. When you take the nut off, you'll see which one it's in. Yeah.
And that's when you're putting it back on, and it's
You gotta
you're
pay
bringing it back. You need to make sure
Make sure it is.
So before you slide that big nut over the top, you have to make sure.
Well,
that,
no. Long before that, because you've already pulled it back into place.
Right, with the
Then-
O-ring and the gasket.
Then you're working on the nut. Once you've got the O-ring inside its recess, being held onto by the 2 little silicone dabs,
Yeah.
you've already gotten it through the hole, and then you're holding pressure on this, not too much, but you're holding pressure on this to keep it in place. Then you work the nut down. So
Got
you
it.
get the nut down to one hand, get behind it with the other hand, and then, the rest of the way.
Got it.